Hello and welcome back to Aetheral Space 15.7. Don't wake the baby. We are back.
We are back. Tan, did you ever watch a show called Dinosaurs?
No.
It was like a sitcom about these.
I know it.
Dinosaurs
I know it. Yeah.
When you say "Don't wake the baby," it reminds me. There's this line. It's like, "I'm the baby, gotta love me." Anyway, shall we?
Sure.
Alcera Nox bit her lip. It was not loyalty that kept her in Vantablack's squad. For years now, she'd been wanting to see the widow dead. Pulped, dissected, obliterated, eviscerated. That woman had taken her away from her sister, from the only person bar Sam who had ever cared for her. Because of her, Derna was floating through the void of space forever, trapped by her own ability. She wanted to see the widow dead, but even death wasn't enough. It had to be gruesome. It had to be deserved. Most of all, it had to be permanent. The death that Alcera Nox was looking at was anything but. From her position in the mouth of the tunnel, she could see the widow, see her resting place, a pristine cuboid sculpture of ice, holding the widow deep inside like she was a bug in a cocoon. Those brown eyes of hers stared forward, unseeing and uncaring. Alcera narrowed her crimson in response. This was one of the widow's abilities, cold sleep. It was a cryogenic technique that temporarily ceased her body's functions, effectively making her dead to the world, until the sculpture was breached, at which point she was reanimated. It seemed the widow had gambled that the weapon wouldn't see her as a target if she no longer registered as a living thing. Well, Alcera noted bitterly, it looks like you were right about that. Alcera, Sam hissed, tugging at her sleeve. Come on back down. We need to go. He was whispering just like she did now, but that only made sense. This close to the surface, he wasn't sure whether this counted as being in the weapon's jurisdiction or not, whether it was safe to talk or not. Well, actually, maybe he was sure. Maybe he'd lived this before and learned the hard way that he had to keep his voice down. Alcera slowly nodded, tearing her gaze away from the frozen widow and retreating back underground. You're not allowed to stay there, Alcera promised. I'm going to break you out of there before long, and kill you myself. Ruth Blaine crawled down the hill. The sun had started to come up at long last, and Ruth felt its warmth spread across her face. A low, rattling breath oozed out of her mouth, as quiet as she dared. She couldn't risk that thing coming back. No, not that thing. Lily Aubrisher. Her friend, her comrade, they'd freed a planet together. They'd tried to free a galaxy together, Elysian Field. She'd gone to the Tartarus to take it out, but that had been the last time Ruth had seen her. She'd thought Lily was dead. She thought Lily was dead. Would that have been better? Ruth Blaine crawled down the hill. She didn't know what they'd done to Lily, or who they were, but it was clear that she was no longer the person Ruth had known. The way she'd fought had made that clear. The way she'd gone to kill, that attack, that had been intended to end her life without a doubt. Lily hadn't even recognized her. Ruth's heart thumped silently in her chest. It had been a close thing. With her infusion and enhanced body, she'd barely managed to survive taking a direct hit from the lightning bolt. But if Lily saw that she had survived, Ruth was certain she'd have just kept attacking. She'd had no choice but to play dead in the most excruciating way possible. It was like what she'd done when she fought against Nyane, manifesting her armor under her skin to shield her insides from attack. This time, though, she'd gone even further, manifesting the armor directly around her own heart. That had served to muffle her heartbeat until it could no longer be heard, and so she had saved herself from Lily's follow-up. Bitter tears came to Ruth's eyes as she dragged herself through the dirt. Lily, that girl really was like a machine now. A person would have checked the body at least, surely? But no. She wasn't moving, she wasn't breathing, and her heart wasn't beating. At that moment, Ruth had vanished from Lily's mind entirely, and the girl had left her there. Ruth Blaine crawled down the hill. Given Lily's appearance, Ruth had to assume that her friends had been defeated. Did that mean they were dead? No. She couldn't believe that. She couldn't bring herself to imagine it. That would be her last move. The one that would finish her off. They were alive, and she needed to get back to them. The mission was a failure. Even though Ruth had survived, she was in no state to get inside the Sed's dome. If there was anyone or anything else guarding it, she'd be helpless. She had to return to whatever was left. And she'd had to do it quietly. That she knew. Concealing her heartbeat had only just barely saved her. If she was too loud, if she sent a rock tumbling down, or struck her arm against a wall, a new 10 seconds would begin. That was the rule that someone had imposed upon Lily Aubrisher. That was the kind of machine someone had turned Ruth's friend into. An automatic murderer. Fire boiled in Ruth's veins, and a promise coalesced in her heart. I'll save you, Lily. she swore. "No matter what, I'll bring you back. Just like Skipper would have done." Serena twitched. When she woke, it was to pain, but she'd expected that. A direct hit from Tybalt's id at full strength while she was off guard. It was a wonder she wasn't dead. But even more than that. "Are you there, Bruno?" No response, just as Serena had expected. Darn it! She'd let her guard down in more ways than one. Bruno had always been more sensitive than her. She should have picked up on how being back at the Sed was affecting him, how he was slowly retreating into some deep corner of their brain. Some big sister she was. Serena tried to get up, but the pain put her right back down again. Someone had put her flat on the rocky floor, with a discarded black cloak serving as a makeshift blanket. She turned her head slightly, ignoring the twinges of pain even that brought on, and saw Morgan lying a short distance away. It seemed he hadn't woken up yet. His bullet wound had been treated. Hopefully, whoever done it had removed the bullet as well. Serena didn't know what kind of bullet Tybalt's ego was using these days, but keeping it inside the body was just asking for trouble. "You awake?" someone asked from out of her vision. "Yeah," she mumbled, stewing in their failure. "I'm awake." The one who had spoken was Sam Set, and he stepped over from where he'd been rummaging through a medkit, his face pale. "How bad is it?" Serena asked. "I managed to scrounge together some stimulants from what the researchers left behind here," Sam explained. "Your body's going through self-repair at the moment, and once Noct wakes up, he can accelerate that using his abilities, so—" "No," Serena said firmly. "How bad is all of it?" Sam faltered for a moment, and then he let out another tired sigh. "We've lost the Widow for the time being," he said, wiping the sweat from his brow. "Wolfram, too. We don't know what happened to him. Blaine hasn't shown her face yet, so I'm thinking maybe—" "She's fine," Serena said seriously. "Huh? Ruth's not the sort of person who dies." "Well, actually, I think everyone's the sort of person who— Never mind, I guess. The point is we've lost our biggest hitters for the time being, and we probably got nothing to show for it." Serena slowly nodded, their miserable situation sinking in. And then quietly, "What about Anatrice?" she asked. "The kid?" "Mm-hmm," Serena nodded. "She's not here anymore, is she?" Samset sighed and shook his head. "No, I was hoping you could tell me about what happened there, along with what attacked you." "Not what?" Serena said. "Who?" "Tybalt Del Sed. He's one of the other people who came from this place. I guess he's like our upperclassman or something. He showed up and beat the crap out of us." "What? On his own?" "Technically, yes." Well, shit," Sam said, wiping his forehead once again. It was very good at producing sweat, it seemed. "Well, what the hell do we do now? We've got that monster upstairs, and there's people sneaking around down here as well? What the fuck?" He was working himself into such a lather, standing up and pacing around the room as he ranted, that he almost didn't hear Serena's question. "Was there a ship?" she asked. He turned his head to look at her. "What? Did anyone go past you when you saw the outside?" Sam shook his head. "No. Why?" "Something's weird," Serena grunted, forcing her body into a sitting position. "The way these tunnels are laid out, there shouldn't be room for anyone to hide out down here for long. Even we're all cramped. There's no way Tybalt and whoever he's working with are living down here." "Okay, so what?" "So," Serena continued, "he must have come down here from above, but he could only have gone past one of us, and even if he did, he wouldn't have been able to get here without anyone noticing. It's like he just suddenly popped up out of nowhere." Sam's eyes widened. "An ability, then? He teleported down here somehow." Serena shook her head. The last time she'd seen Tybalt, he hadn't had any abilities like that, and she doubted he could have developed something like that in a relatively short amount of time. Tybalt Del Sed's main ability was called trisection. It separated his consciousness into three personas: the instinctive id, the logical ego, and the conciliatory superego. One controlled the body at a time, while the others lingered as shades that could act as scouts or basic combatants. Just like with Caught, Tybalt's three segments all had their own individual abilities as well. The id's ability was the simplest. The less thought it put into an attack, the more powerful that attack became. Oh, it's like that fucking thing from JJK?
What do you mean?
Do you know the guy who's like, the harder you hit, the less damage it does? And then when you like flick him, he goes flying?
Not exactly the same.
Right. The clumsy push it had used on her had been particularly effective for just that reason. The ego had a pretty simple ability as well. Whenever it fired its gun, it automatically recorded the ammunition it had on hand and manifested it inside the weapon, instantly reloading. If the gun got knocked out of its hands, it could bring it right back too. The superego was particularly tricky. I thought the ego was the yapper and the super ego was like the I know what you are.
I don't believe so.
No, because he switched to the super ego last chapter, and he was like, actually, that ability is called...
Ego came back for that bit.
Hold on, can you link me the chapter so I can double check?
No, afterwards.
This fucking bastard. Okay, the super ego was particularly tricky. It really liked to yap, and the more you listened to it, the more it would drain your will to fight. Combined with the natural exhaustion of battle, just talking to the super ego for a few minutes could put you on the floor. The closest thing to a teleportation ability Tybalt had was that of his ego, but teleporting multiple people was surely beyond that. Serena wasn't sure. Well, she wasn't 100% sure, but... I think there's something down here, she said. Something that Tybalt used to get here, and to get back to his base. His base, Sam said slowly, nodded, hand on his chin. Well, that does make sense, but where the hell should we be looking then? Not here. Sorry. Not here, grunted Morgan Noct. The two snapped their heads to look at him. He'd opened one eye from his position on the floor, and, judging from the look on his face, he wasn't feeling much better than Serena. He took a labored breath before managing to speak again. Give me a sec, he gasped. I'll get myself up first, and then we're going after that bastard. He steeled himself. H.A. and started to scream. Anatrice Del Ced awoke to white light. This was a familiar ceiling, sterile, pressing down despite the distance. These were familiar walls, glass, allowing curious eyes to look in on their lab rat. This was a familiar bed, neat and cold like a coffin's prologue. This was a familiar pain, pulsing in her head like someone had taken a whisk to her brain. The last thing she remembered was Tybalt Del Ced advancing on her, and then the pain, and then the blackness. Had he hit her across the head or something? It certainly felt like she'd been knocked out cold. Or maybe it had all been a dream, she thought for a moment. Maybe the set had never shut down after all. Maybe some nameless thing, for it surely wasn't called Anatrice, had deluded itself into thinking it could exist, into thinking it had the right to exist. The scientists would come back any seconds now, and the experiments would resume like nothing ever happened. It took Anatrice quite a few seconds to realize she wasn't breathing, and when she finally did, letting out a shaking breath. You're awake. A shudder went down Anatrice's spine, and she turned her head to look at the source of the voice. This brightly lit bedroom she'd woken up in, containing a bed, a toilet, and little else, was encased in a glass box, like an exhibit at the zoo. Beyond that was a dark chamber, a place for observation of the light. And standing on the threshold of that darkness was Erica Del Ced. Anatrice resisted the urge to throw the covers over her head and hide. She knew Erica Del Ced's face, of course. Every child of the Ced did. Erica was the Ced's first subject, and their first success. The foremost controller they had produced. The measuring stick by which all others were judged. She stared through the glass at Anatrice, unblinking, waiting for something. That look in her eyes, it wasn't that she thought she was better than you. She knew she was better than you, and just by seeing her, you knew it too. I can try and escape, Anatrice suggested to herself feverishly. If I use Zakos' ability, I can pull the glass out of the walls and hurl it back at her. It'd distract her, if nothing else. Tan. If nothing else, I think.
You almost said Rabblat before.
No! You caught that?
Yeah.
You weren't supposed to hear that!
And yet, I catch these things all the time and I never mention them.
I'm so sorry, I'll never edit
It's like that
Ether
picture
again.
where it's like, you can't understand my pain. I'm like, sorry.
Do you not want me to point out the spec
No,
edits?
it's fine.
I thought that was the point of this. I thought that was the point of all of this.
I said it's fine, and then you acted like I said the opposite.
What the hell? Make up your mind!
He's crashing out. Point out one speaking error, and this is what becomes of him.
Sorry. So sorry. I'm like Jesus on the cross.
You're one of the thieves next to him, but I'll forgive you.
Yeah, I'm woe and dread. It'd distract her if nothing else. Only, it wasn't called Zakos' ability, was it? It was called Plunder Reach. It made sense. A high-strung mess of a man like that would never have had the discipline required to develop a nameless technique. She should have understood that immediately. All she'd created then was a clumsy caricature, and that was not something that could beckon the dead. You're frightened, Erica said kindly. That's understandable. Where am I? Anatrice asked, trying to stop her clumsy voice from shaking. She failed. The Thinker's Comet, Erica replied without hesitation. High above the Sed. Anatrice blinked. What? What was this? The Thinker's Comet? That was the headquarters of the Supremacy's absurd weapons lab, wasn't it? What the hell was it doing inside the UAP? And what the hell was Erica Del Sed doing with them? Don't worry about the AWL, Erica said, as if she could hear Anatrice's thoughts. You're under my protection now. So long as you're under my protection, there's nothing in the world that can harm you. With that promise lingering in the air, she reached down and tapped a button on her wrist-bound script. Immediately, the air inside the chamber hissed, and a glass panel slid away from the wall, creating an exit for Anatrice to leave through. Erica stood next to it, looking at her expectantly. Come with me, Erica beckoned. I'm going to show you something and explain it to you. Once I do, you'll understand the whole world. Anatrice blinked. It was bizarre? Erica's words were arrogant to the extreme, just like his, but the presence she gave off couldn't have been more different from Samael Ambrosio Zakos. Samael had been someone grasping for greatness until the day he died. Erica seemed like she dominated the very concept of greatness, and did so easily. This is someone on an entirely different level than me. This is something on an entirely different level than me. Just by looking at her, that thought rose unbidden into Anatrice's head. This was no aether ability, simply the natural instinct of an organism who understood hierarchy. Faced with that, what could Anatrice do but obey? She stood on quivering legs and, alongside Erica, walked through the darkness and into the hallway beyond. The corridor was lined with windows, each looking in on a sterile, white testing room. Some were empty, but most weren't. Aether awakenings and other strange creatures being poked and prodded and directed and vivisected. Anatrice only managed to tear her gaze away once Erica started talking again. It's distasteful, she said, having to operate from a place that reminds us so much of home. I don't blame you for being uncomfortable. Anatrice summoned the courage and spoke. What are we doing here? What are you doing here? Erica didn't look down at her as she walked. She continued to stare straight forward, utterly relaxed. Something incredible and rare is about to happen, the woman said. I'm going to ask you a question. Are you ready? That wasn't the question. Tell me, what was the purpose of the Sed? Anatrice took a deep breath. To create artificial cogitants, right? So the UAP could match the Supremacy's advantage? That was the story we were told. But it seemed strange to me. I didn't think such an advantage actually existed. It was only when I met Penelope that I had confirmation of the lie. Penelope? That's irrelevant to you, Erica replied. But it begs another question. Get ready, I'm about to ask it. If the purpose of the Sed was not to create artificial cogitants, then what was it? I don't know. Be happy, then. I'm about to tell you. The two of them reached the end of the hallway, where a massive metal door waited, tall and imposing. Erica took a step forward, and, after a brief scan by the door's sensors, it slowly screeched open. Red light washed over the two of them within. The chamber beyond was gargantuan, spherical, such that it was difficult to see the far end of the room from the entrance. At first, Anatrice thought that the odd lumps she saw in the shadows were machinery, but no. Masked figures were kneeled all around the perimeter of the room, aether of various colors crackling around their forms, and that aether flowed. It flowed down into the floor, crawled across the room, and coalesced inside a huge glass tube at the chamber's center. The aether was forming something. Slowly but surely, a bloody gash of scarlet light. At first glance, it looked to Anatrice like a wound in the air, but at second glance, it felt more like the staring pupil of some unfinished eye. Tell me, said Erica, have you ever heard of something called the Prince? Oh, they're making a body for the Prince! No. Hold on. Can you trust the Prince? But why is the AWL helping with that? What are our odds that Prince is going to kill Pierrot and go into Blackmane? Or maybe Erica, even.
If I told you anything either way, it would be insider trading, essentially.
You're right. You're right. Fuck.
I will say the big lore next episode.
I need it in my veins! What a banger! What a teaser. You know what sucks about this, though?
Right.
So this setup, I only have to wait a day, but then I have to wait fucking till Wednesday to talk to anyone else about this. I hate when this happens. Oh, man. All right, questions. Where were we? Here we are. You already answered Umbrans can't change. Oh, yeah. What's the extent to what Umbrans can change?
What? In what sense? Sorry.
We know they can change their hair, their memories, their eyes. You said they can't change their skin. What else can they change? Their voice, I think?
Yeah, voice they can do. That's easy. Eye colour, they can pretend to be they could pretend to be conscient if they wanted, I guess. Memory, they have active control. They can consciously forget or repress things. Hair length and hair colour they can do.
Mm-hmm. Can they become taller or shorter?
No.
Okay.
It's all very much minor aesthetic details outside the memory thing.
Okay.
Because the Gene Tyrants were like, well, I don't want a spy who's as good as me inside my empire.
Yeah, that's true.
That isn't me.
Yeah, facts.
And even then, after a little while, we're like, hey guys, this is kind of a problem. We need to get rid of these fucking things.
MT asks, what languages have survived from modern day?
I will say, in much the same way I talked about Earth culture before, it's at some point we probably all went into a word language, and from there diverged into lots of new languages, and went back together again in a cycle that is repeated so much. So if you were isekai to Aetheral Space, you have no clue what anyone's saying.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned early on as some patchwork pigeon language.
Yeah.
How does that work with Lilith worlds, though? Because they presumably have their own languages.
Yes.
How'd they communicate with Lily and them?
Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay. Yay! MT asks, has Nail ever fused /100%ed with his guardian entities?
No, he doesn't go along that track. He's using them vanilla style.
Lan asks,
he's the only guy with 2 guardian entities we've seen in exchange.
That is true. Lance asks, does the person need to want to continue living in order for them to awaken? Could you be dying and let go, but your Aether core is giving up or something, and so you awaken anyway?
That's possible.
JT asks, if you make a powerful ability with a restriction, could you create a second ability to counteract the restriction?
It would weaken your initial ability if you did that.
Nod. I thought so. Lan asks, when was Der Freischuss invented, and by whom?
I imagine it as originally a Lee Harvey Oswald wanted to kill a Supreme, I imagine, and developed it for that purpose originally, but he blew himself up.
Then he blew himself up, yeah.
But someone else got the notes or something, I was like, oh, this guy was cooking.
Well, yeah, because all those types of people have a manifesto, right?
Yeah.
And then it's surely this ultimate
technique, politics.
The theory is there!
Ooh.
The theory is there, but the practicality, and then Johann Blackbird finally came along, and then immediately jobbed.
But he did make it work.
Yeah, he did make it work. Greenie asks, what is the line between... Oh, we already answered that. Why, hold on. Lan asks, how old is Mariloko?
Mariloko, yeah, late 30s, early 40s, I would say.
And chronologically, he's 200
Yeah.
in late 30s, 200 in late 40s.
Yeah, but he wasn't around for that extra time.
Yeah. Leaving off here. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.